What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Galaxy of Heroes video. We had our kit reveal for Zori Bliss's Y-Wing yesterday, and Meathead has also now blessed us with the brand new Datacron set that's coming out in what, like a week? There's some real doozies in here. Let's check it out. Here's our good man Tuscan Meathead taking to the forums and letting us know what the new Datacron set is all about. So, happy things first. The Datacron relic requirements are the same as previously, 1, 3, and 5. No longer are we going back to Relic 7 for the requirements, for which I'm eternally grateful, so thank you CG for that one bit of news. We do have the return of a rather unsightly stat to this particular set, and that would be deflection chance. Now, those of you that don't know, deflection chance is the chance to evade, specifically when it comes to special attacks. So attacks from certain characters that use special offense in order to land their attacks. There are certain characters that do this, like Emperor Palpatine, for example. Emperor Palpatine, you've got him, you've got Fennec Shand, she is also a special attacker. In order to see that, just go into a character's abilities, click on it, and it'll say deal physical damage or deal special damage. So, with high deflection chance, you have a high chance to avoid attacks from those characters that use that. Now, it's a bit of a pro and a con. We do have accuracy as well, and the accuracy has got a higher average roll than deflection, so you should be able to offset the opponent getting a lot of evasion, but it's still not fun. I did crunch a couple of numbers on this, guys, just to see, you know, whereabouts we would be landing when it comes to full sets of, like, deflection chance, for example, and you can see it up here. So if an opponent manages to roll a Datacron and every single one of those rolls on the stats, that's the level 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8, are all deflection chances, the average that they're going to be is about 80% evasion, which is really high, don't get me wrong. Minimum will be 60, maximum is 100%. It's highly unlikely that they'll get anywhere that high. You could probably expect to see about 80%. Similarly, if we were to look at accuracy, it is higher because the rolls are on average higher. So you can offset, more than offset, with accuracy rolls, but I still don't want to do it. CG, please just remove evasion chance as an ability overall. Great, super smashing. For other stats, you've got stuff like crit avoidance and crit damage, which is quite nice, and you've also got the return of tenacity, which can be useful in a lot of teams as well. Apart from that, we do have resistance. Now, resistance is similar to how deflection chance is your chance to evade an attack that uses special damage. Resistance is your ability to reduce incoming damage. Okay, it's like armor. Armor gets split up into, you know, physical defense and special defense. Resistance is special defense, so you'll take reduced damage from those attacks. Some use, not massively useful, nowhere near as useful as just flat defense boosts. Alright, so let's take a look at the alignments. We've got one for dark side and we've got two for light side. Overall, there's some pretty good ones and there's some pretty bad ones. So taking a look at some of the really good ones that you can see in both light side and dark side would be this one over here. Whenever an ally inflicts a debuff on an enemy, they deal damage to that enemy equal to 2% of that enemy's max health. This is really, really good for teams that put out a lot of debuffs. I'm looking at teams like anything with Sith, typically speaking, does a lot of debuffs. Darth Revan, Inquisitors, all these guys do boatloads of debuffs, and that means you're stacking a lot of damage. On the light side, you do have a few teams that can do debuffs. Mostly I'm thinking Scoundrels here. Dash Rendar, for example, puts out a bunch of debuffs that are irresistible on his AoE. You've got people like Bad Batch doing AoE irresistible debuffs. All of that dealing percentile max health damage to the enemy is super, super good. What else can we pick out from here? You've got a couple of things that help you recover health and protection. You've got another one over there for light side and dark side that lets you recover or gives you a 25% chance, to dispel all debuffs on you. Can be quite useful in a Galactic Legend Ray team, for example, to start cleansing off things like shock when being fought by a EP Starkiller team, for example. And then you've got a slightly different variant on the dark side and light side for whenever an ally reaches thresholds of HP below 90, 70 and 50%. The dark side one will apply doubt on a random enemy that doesn't have it for 2 turns, which is irresistible. That doubt essentially, it works by stopping that enemy from gaining buffs, and they also are unable to gain turn meter. Quite useful, but a little bit specific. There are characters in the game that do it. Currently, only Malgus and Aphra, I believe, are the 2 characters that can spread doubt to the enemy team, and these ones are probably better off on those teams in order to try and get a little bit of use out of them. Now, the light side one essentially gives you protection up 50% for 2 turns, which can't be prevented. I think that one is actually pretty good on the whole because it gives you a huge level of survivability. Potentially this could also be used on a Galactic Legends raid team just to keep them in the game a little bit longer. Moving on to the factions, we've got 3 factions this time: Mandalorian, Rebel Fighters, and Empire once again. So Mandalorians over here will start looking at their level 6s. Whenever a Mandalorian ally deals damage with an enemy attack, if that enemy was damaged during the last Mandalorian ally turn, all Mandalorian allies gain 2% stacking offense till the end of battle. That's huge. That is absolutely huge. So essentially, in a full Mandalorian team, this is fine because you're going to be stacking damage provided you're attacking the same person. But this is an infinitely stacking offense stat, okay? Provided you're hitting the same person, really, really, really good. Now, a lot of the Mandalorians have multiple attacks. I know Bo-Katan in particular has a lot. Even if you were going in with a Fennec team with, say, Beskar armor Mando, he's probably going to be one of the only Mandalorians. You might have OG Mando in there as well, and those two will still be able to stack offense. Now, that's not massively useful against the Lord Vader team, I understand, but it's nice to have some sort of benefit all the same. I do feel like this ability is slightly better in 5v5s than 3v3, but that's just my personal take on it. This will bleed over into other teams. For example, using bounty hunters with Jango Fett, he is still he's still a Mandalorian, so is OG Mando. Jango Fett also gets used in a separatist team, so there's some additional benefits there, you know, if you're one of those guys that likes to use trench. So there are still some additional benefits, and, you know, Jango stacking up offense into eternally can be quite a nice little benefit there. Moving on next then, we've got the first time an ally falls below 50% health, all allies reduce their cooldowns by 1 and generate a bit of turn meter. I can't see you wanting to use this over another one. It's nice to have, you know, cooldown reduction and additional TM can help Bam, for example, make sure that he's always got the damage immunity ability available for his allies. But overall, I don't think this is the best level 6 for Mandos. We've also got whenever allies grant a buff to another ally, that ally gains 10% turn meter. Again, it's decent, not amazing. We also have a permanent death ability so that, you know, it completely prevents revives. These are always useful in clutch situations in GAC where you desperately need to kill something that's going to be constantly reviving, say Night Sister teams or something to that effect, or even Ben Kenobi when he's teamed up in a raid team can be useful in those scenarios. We've also got whenever an ally falls below 100% health, they gain a bonus turn, but this is limited to once per turn per battle, once per character, sorry, per battle. So if this was constant, that would be great, but it's just once. Moving on to the Rebel Fighter abilities then. Whenever an ally loses a stack of heal over time, they gain a stack of heal over time for 2 turns. So essentially it just means they're always gaining heal over time. So this is really good with Xaereth, and generally good for Rebel Fighters. We've also got whenever allies grant a buff to another ally, they gain 10% turn meter. This one I feel is absolutely amazing for Mon Mothma teams because there's a lot of buffs that get passed in that team quite incessantly, in fact. So that is additional turn meter trains on top of what they would already be getting from characters like Xaereth Rebel Pathfinder or Hoth Rebel Scout, sorry. So yeah, that's a really, really good level 6, I think, for Momo fighters. And then we've got the first time each ally falls below 50% health, they reduce allies' cooldowns by 1 and gain 10% turn meter. I don't think this is as good as the other one, but still has some use. Rebel fighters, whenever an ally is revived, they gain protection up 10% for 2 turns, gain 25% turn meter and reduce their cooldowns by 1. This one is actually really cool, particularly good with stuff like Xaereth Rebel Pathfinder and with Cara Dune, of course. And finally, we've got whenever an ally critically hits an enemy during their turn, that ally gains 10% offense, stacking for 2 turns. I'm not massively enamored by this one, because it's only when you critically hit during your turn. This one, it's okay, but I would have preferred it if it was on all attacks, or if it didn't only stack for 2 turns, because as it stands, I don't feel like it's going to make a significant difference in the long run of your battles. Moving on to the Empire abilities then. Whenever we've got an Empire enemy losing turn meter, all of your allies are going to gain protection up 10% for 2 turns, and whenever that protection up disappears, they're going to gain 10% turn meter. this one is actually pretty good. There are a number of enemies there are a number of Empire units, that have turn meter removal in their kits. I'm looking at characters like Moff Gideon, Dark Trooper Moff Gideon. I'm looking at characters like Stark, for example. These guys can remove turn meter, and that just adds additional survivability. Now, in a Veers team, if you've got turn meter removal as well, that does count as a buff, that protection up, I believe. So that should be granting you additional turn meter as well. Then we've got at the end of their turn, allies gain defense pen up and offense up for 1 turn. Really good in a Veers team. End of your turn, you're gaining 2 buffs, which means 20% turn meter, which is really nice. Similarly speaking, just like in the previous set, we've got that additional 400% offense from your defense getting converted. This is really good for a Dark Trooper Moff Gideon team. I am not surprised in the slightest that they made this one come back for his level 9 ability as well. Then we've got whenever allies target another ally with ability during their turn, it's going to stack up their offense, defense, max health, max protection, yada yada yada. This one's okay, but honestly, I don't think that this is the best one for Empire characters. Just nice to have. Finally, we've got whenever allies critically hit an enemy during their turn, they're gaining that offense again. So this one is potentially a little bit better for Empire, where you've got some better single target damage, but overall I can see much more value in things like the 400% of your defense getting converted to offense, for example. And this is Empire now, it's not just Imperial troopers, so it will work on stuff like, say, Lord Vader. And this is where we get into the really juicy stuff, the level 9s. This Bo-Katan one is absolutely nuts. If I'm reading this right, it sounds like she will literally solo Lord Vader. So if you are one of the 918 people that unlocked Bo-Katan Mandalore when she came out in December, congratulations. You have got a monstrous character. Absolutely monstrous. Let's go through this. If all allies are light side Mandalorians, if you go in solo, all allies are light side Mandalorians. At the start of battle, Bo-Katan Mandalore takes a bonus turn. You can't stop a bonus turn like that, which then can't be prevented. Oh, well, there you go. Can't be prevented, and a random non-galactic legend enemy loses 100% protection. That sounds pretty weird, right? So, okay, yeah, fine. However, it plays into the second part. Whenever Bo-Katan Mandalore uses her basic ability on her turn, not when she counterattacks, if the target enemy is not a galactic legend and has no protection, they are instantly defeated. Whenever an enemy is defeated, Bo-Katan takes a bonus turn, which can't be prevented. So picture this. Lord Vader, his leadership converts all protection to health. Bo-Katan goes in solo against Lord Vader, takes a bonus turn, is then free to attack a unit on the enemy team. If she basics, she gets a bonus turn. So she just kills off all of Lord Vader's adds and takes bonus turn after bonus turn after bonus turn after bonus turn until it's just Lord Vader. Now, she can't literally solo Lord Vader, and I'm not sure if she can, after that point, solo Lord Vader without any additional support. However, she will be able to just completely destroy the enemy team. And this will apply to any team that has, anything that removes protection or just doesn't have protection in general. For example, units like Malak. Malak has no protection. He already converts that all to max health. Anybody that has got a grit effect is going to have that. There are a couple of characters with grits as their level 9. Bo-Katan will be able to just basic them and kill them outright, which is just crazy because then she takes a bonus turn. It's insane. She's just going to be absolutely nutty, ladies and gentlemen. IG-12 and Grogu gains the grit effect, which means he loses all of his max protection, converts that to max health, takes reduced damage from percentile health effects, and then whenever he uses a special ability, he calls an additional light side Mandalorian ally to assist. Pretty good, but if you've got IG-12 and Grogu, you've probably got Bo-Katan, and you're better off with that level 9. But hey, this one is still pretty decent, I'd say. Next up, Paz Vizsla. This one's great, actually. Whenever another ally uses an ability on their turn, he assists, dealing 50% more damage. Now, Paz does great amounts of damage as it is, so being able to throw him in with, other Mandalorians, even if you don't happen to have Bo-Katan, this is going to be a really, really good datacron. Then we've got a wonderful BAM one. We used to have this one before, I think it was about a year ago. Disciplined setup. Essentially, when he goes into poop stance getting ready to use his whistling birds, he cannot be killed. He's immune to being killed, which is great. He can't be feared, he can't be stunned, he can't have his TM reduced, and his whistling birds do 20% more damage for each stack of whistling birds, which means at 20 stacks of whistling birds, He's doing 400% additional damage per hit. Like, I've seen this thing in 5v5 take down GLs in a hit. Just beep, 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 pff, dead. I can't wait to get this Beskar Mando one. Everybody get it. Mod your BAM for boatloads of offense. Have fun killing GLs. That's what I'm going to do. And then we've also got one for OG Mando. He gains 15% turn meter whenever other allies use special abilities during their turn. Pretty decent. Quite useful for a bounty hunter setup, obviously, to help get him additional turns so that he can disintegrate people. Pretty decent. Not bad. Next up, we've got Xaereth Prevails. If the allied leader is a rebel fighter, that's the only clause here, because if you could use this with, like, Leia, this would be awesome. Whenever an ally gains a stack of heal over time, Xaereth and Prevails gain 10% stacking offense till the end of battle. That's very nice. Xaereth also gains 5% turn meter once per turn. Whenever he uses a basic, Prevails is also called to assist. All really, really good effects, especially when you pair it with the level 6s and the level 3s. This, like, Xaereth and Prevails will actually be really, really good inside of any rebel fighter team. Next up, we got Bodhi Rook. He is officially the pilot, and his Datacron is actually also pretty good. Shame mine is like gear 4. If the allied leader is rebel fighter, whenever a rebel fighter ally gains or loses turn meter or a bonus turn, they recover that much health and protection. Whenever an enemy loses turn meter, they take 10% of their max health as true damage. Whenever Bodhi Rook uses a basic ability, the enemy loses 30% turn meter, which can't be resisted, which is of course also then going to trigger that 10% max health damage. If Bodhi Rook is defeated while another rebel fighter ally is active, he revives 50% health and takes a bonus turn, which is then going to trigger the first part of his kit. It's actually a really good datacron for Bodhi Rook, but I am not relicking my Bodhi Rook until he is actually a pilot in game. I'm sorry, CG. Next up, Jyn Erso. This one's actually really good. Whenever Jyn critically hits an enemy, she's going to gain 10% crit damage and defense penetration and offense up to 200% until the end of battle. That's going to be huge on an Adrad team. Adrad is already doing really good stuff. Adrad beats, by the way, like Dark Trooper Moff Gideon, for example. I've heard it also works wonders against a number of other teams. But I can see this doing some really good work, probably even might actually be able to beat raid teams now on defense, which is kind of nifty. I'm going to try and get this one set up for myself. Lando, whenever another ally uses an ability on that turn, he assists, dealing 50% more damage. He is a rebel fighter. Inside of a Momo team, that's actually going to be some significant amounts of damage. 50% is actually pretty huge. Biggs, whenever another ally attacks out of turn, that ally gains 25% turn meter. Huge for a Momo team. Absolutely huge. If you go in with standard Momo teams here, using stuff like Cara Dune and using Hoth Rebel Scout, for example, using Kyle Katarn and using Biggs, all those mass assists, they're going to gain 25% turn meter out the rip. That is absolutely huge. And then if you pair it with the level 6 over here, which one is it? Whenever an ally grants a buff to another ally, that ally gains 10% turn meter. A lot of the times on basic, they're going to be passing buffs around the team. So pair that with Biggs, you're automatically going to be gaining at least 35% offense before anything else... 35% turn meter before anything else triggers. That's actually pretty good, if you ask me. Dark Trooper Moff Gideon, he is now going to be able to summon a Dark Trooper ally. That's actually really, really cool. And in addition to that, whenever an ally in his team uses a special ability, all the Moff Gideons on your team are going to get maximum stacks of insight. Gain 1 stack of insight. And Imperial Remnant allies gain 15% defense and offense for each stack of insight on all Moff Gideons. I think they cap out like 6 or something like that. So you can stack up a lot of additional offense and defense. Pair that with the additional 400% defense to offense that you're going to be getting. You're going to be destroying people with Moff Gideon. Probe Droid also gets grit, but he also gets the ability to be revived. And on top of that, his self-destruct is going to be able to ignore taunt, and it does more damage. It's pretty huge, actually. It's pretty huge. Death Trooper gets one. The first time he's defeated, he's revived with 100% health and protection over time for 75%, and he takes a bonus turn. Not that great, to be honest, but it's okay, I guess. And finally, we've got Shore Trooper. Finally, Shelly the Shore Trooper is getting a datacron over here. Whenever Shelly is dealt some damage, reflect 20% of the damage back at the attacker as true damage, which can't be evaded. This damage can't defeat enemies. Now, this one sounds really good, but it actually isn't, and for a number of reasons. First of all, it can't kill an enemy, so you'll never defeat an enemy like this. Second of all, generally speaking, tanks tend to reduce incoming damage quite a bit because of their high defense, so they don't tend to take a lot of damage, so it ends up reflecting very, very little. And overall, it's just very underwhelming as a level 9. I don't actually recommend the Shore Trooper one at all. Then we have Director Krennic. So for all you people out there that have got the Omicron on Director Krennic, now's your time to shine. Whenever Krennic hits an enemy, he gains 10% crit damage, defense, penetration, and offense, stacking to 200%. It is actually quite a nice datacron. But I don't think it's worth using Krennic over it. Maybe I'll be wrong and people will do crazy, crazy things with Director Krennic. But that's just me. For me, I've got to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, the real winners here are definitely Bo-Katan Mandalore, and I think Bam's one is phenomenal. I think Dark Trooper's got a lot of good going for it. We're going to have some horrible, horrible times with the likes of Lord Vader and Empire Troopers and all that sort of business, but on the whole, pretty decent datacron. Not a big fan of the evasion. What do you think about set 13? Let me know in the comment section down below. Before you go, hit that like button and subscribe to your boy Scribe, and I will see you all in the very next video. Peace out, and may the Force be with you.